One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. Self-sponsored ads. I don't remember if this is something that I came up with myself, if I heard it somewhere else. I don't really remember when the term self-sponsored ad came into my world, right? And I'm not trying to take credit for it whatsoever. I'm just saying that I just remember it was like a lightning bolt. Have you had those lightning bolt moments when like things just click and you're like, oh, that makes sense? Or I have to try that. Or what is that? I want to go Google it and find more information. That is literally how I have felt about self-sponsored ads. I've been obsessed with them. And I was looking back at the content. We've already created content around here. Like if you've been around here, you know I love talking about dynamic content. I love talking about creating your own podcast ads, and we're going to get to that a little bit more in a second. But I just love the idea of really kind of prompting and preparing your audience for whenever you do get that big sponsorship or you do get that super big brand deal that you've always dreamed of. And I really just want to kind of do a reiteration of how important self-sponsored ads are. So let's get right to it. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach entrepreneurs how to start, launch, and market their podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of podcasting, think of this show as the time-saving shortcut you've been looking for. So let's get right to it, shall we? So today's episode is going to be a little bit of a mixture of tough love, and the people that need to hear, they'll know exactly. I'm going to explain exactly who needs this tough love today. but it's going to be a mixture of tough love and a little bit of a throwback. So if you've been around here, you know that I am not a big fan of taking an old episode and like doing a revisited, basically just re-airing that episode. I think that there's always a little bit of wiggle room to take some spin and update or add on content to maybe what you've already created. Like, let's do a refresh. And so while I'm going to be linking to several episodes, lots of content on podcast ads, I just wanted to really hit home the fact that I've been talking about this for 2 years. And that is just, it's a little crazy to me because I haven't always had access to dynamic content. I haven't always had access to some of the tools and the things that make creating your own ads easier. I don't want to sound like the old the old grandma that's telling you like, well, back in my day, this is what used to happen. But I mean, that's kind of what I am saying is like, y'all have it so much easier today. You kids, you youngster podcasters got it so much easier than us like old seasoned folks. I'm not saying that, but I kind of am, just because this dates back to episode 72. Episode 72, that's 2 years ago. This is episode 295, and episode 72 was when we first brought up podcast ads. And things have changed so much since that first episode, but that's how long I've been obsessed with promoting your own products, really getting the things that are important to you and your business out there and not waiting until you have a big brand deal or a big corporate sponsor or anything like that. I really just wanted to put that out there. And for those of you that are listening, and I know there's several of you because I've spoken, I've talked to you, I know who you are. I'm not going to call you out by name, but you know who you are. You're like, oh, she's talking to me. She's calling me out today. I want you to start feeling more comfortable promoting yourself and promoting your products and promoting your business, promoting your service, whatever it is that you do. I want you to start feeling more comfortable making the ask, right? Asking for the sale. And I know that this comes with time. I've definitely grown in this area. I wasn't always as confident as I am today about not being afraid to promote things that are really important to me, to my business. They're things that I know can get my audience results. And it's kind of a learning curve, but I'm just going to challenge you. I'm pushing you. This is my job, okay? This is my job as your podcast coach to push you out of your comfort zone. And some of y'all are playing small. You're playing small and you're like, oh, well, I'll do self-sponsored ads when I have a better product, or when I launch my book, or when I can finally have that live event I always dreamed about doing, or even that virtual summit. I'll do it then. I'm just sighing so loud. This is my mom sigh, okay? I don't know if you parents out there, if you have a mom sigh where you just pause and you take a deep breath and you're like, oh, okay, here's the truth. You got to start somewhere. You know this. If you've been listening to this podcast, you know this already. I'm going to tell you that every single episode, you've got to start somewhere. And when it comes to promoting yourself, I think that your podcast is one of the best places that you can start making those asks. And asks is a hard word to say. I was like, make sure I get that K sound in there, making the ask. There we go. But all the episodes that I'm going to talk about are linked in the show notes. So crystalprofit.com/episode 295 is where you're going to find everything. But like I said, y'all, we're on episode 295. I've been talking about podcast ads since episode 72. So quickly, I'm going to run down the reference resources that I have for you today. So podcast ads, how to create your own. Go listen to that episode because it is like the basics 101. There's no talk about dynamic content because let's just keep it real. I was not using dynamic content. I probably even talk about one day, I hope that they can have something that does this for you. But it really is just breaking down the mechanics, the step-by-step of what podcast ads are and how to create your own. So it's just very, very basic. Like, strip it down to the basics. And then I went into an episode 120, where I talk about podcast sponsors. So this is how to approach a company for advertising. This was more of not so much your own products and services, but it's going out and kind of using your advertising muscle. Especially, I remember this episode came about from a podcaster that reached out to me that wanted to work with a local company. Like, they were like, hey, I want to reach out to these people. I think they'd be a great fit for my audience, and I want to go talk to them. So I talk about how you can approach a company for advertising. Is this the same as self-sponsored ads? No, but it is talking about promoting things on your podcast. So it was closely aligned with what we're talking about today. And then I had a great conversation with Anthony Savelli over at Podcast Ads Representatives. Always say that. It's PAR, P-A-R. And they, it was just such a fun conversation. I was so happy to have met him at Spark in 2020. And we just had a really candid conversation on how podcast advertising really works. And the reason why I want you to go listen to this episode is because I want you to understand the mechanics of what it is like to work with a corporate sponsor. Because if you can wrap your head around it, I think it's important, even if you're not going to go that route. If you're like, I'm not worried about download numbers, I'm just doing this for myself or my community, that's all fantastic. But I still think that you should understand how podcast advertising really works, because what if your podcast does take off? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I have the potential to use sponsors. You have to ask the question, do I want to? And what does that look like? What does that relationship look like? So I want you to understand the mechanics of it, because you can also apply that to your own ads and know how you want to formulate it or create systems and processes on the back end of your business that kind of mirrors what happens in the podcast advertising world. And then I actually did a more recent episode on podcast ads, how to create your own and where to use them. And this is kind of like an updated, we were talking about having like an updated, revisited episode. That's kind of what this one was. It was the refresh, the reboot on that original episode 72, where I go into how to do your own ads, what that can look like, when to use them, where to use them. And I go a little bit more, it's a little bit deeper than that original one, mostly because, like I said, y'all have some really cool tools. There's some awesome tools out there to help you create your own self-sponsored ads. But really, the reason why I'm bringing all of this up today, in today's episode in particular, is because there is a brand new masterclass that I'm teaching in Podcaster's Kit 2021. It is all about how to sell your own products on your podcast, and it's a deep dive into self-sponsored ads. So even though I've done a little bit of teaching on self-sponsored ads here on the podcast, a little bit on the YouTube channel, which I'll link to some of my videos on YouTube, I'm doing a deep dive in Podcaster's Kit 2021. Now, what is Podcaster's Kit? This is a product that if you're listening to this in the future, it's not going to be available outside of this window. It's only offered once a year, but the promotional period this year is from October 3rd through October 9th, 2021. So like I said, if you're listening to this outside of then, sorry, the time has passed, and it just mark your calendar for next year. It usually happens in the fall. So the fall of 2022 is when you can expect Podcaster's Kit to come back around. But what I love about this product is it's super affordable. It's only $47. That's 47 US dollars. And it's a perfect product to get started if you're a brand new podcaster, if you're launching your show soon, if you're a seasoned podcaster. So I thought, why don't I just list off some of these really incredible, because it's a bundle, right? You don't just buy my How to Sell Your Own Products live masterclass and that's all you get for $47. No. These are all the things that you get for that $47 from all these amazing podcast experts that have contributed to Podcaster's Kit. So one of them is a podcast planner. Hello, who doesn't need that, right? Then there's a product about YouTube for podcasters, how to tell your story with a podcast, how to sell your own products on a podcast. That one's mine. Virtual Summit Starter Kit, High Converting Podcast Show Notes Masterclass, Podcast Guest Release Forms, Legal Template, Using AI Shortcuts to Create Show Notes, Mastering Podcast Equalization, the 7-Day Podcast Launch Challenge, Podcasting from Both Sides of the Mic, and the list goes on and on and on. Like I said, all of these products are pushed into this bundle and it is given to you for an amazing price of $47. So I want you right now, as soon as you're done listening to this, to go to crystalprofit.com/PK2021. Like take my initials and invert them. So instead of KP, it's PK2021. And you're going to find all the information about Podcaster's Kit 2021. It's going to be so much fun. I cannot wait. I'm delivering my live masterclass on October 21st, and it's going to be so much fun. So if you buy the kit, join us live, and there will be a replay and everything for anybody that purchases, but it's going to be a lot of fun. If you want to know more about podcast ads, how they work, how you can use them for your own products and services, I highly recommend coming to this. But make sure you go to the show notes. That's crystalprofit.com/episode 295. And I'm going to link to all the resources that I have. That way, if you're not able to join us, that's okay. We still have so many resources about podcast ads. But I would love to see you in our live masterclass because it's going to be so much fun. But that's all I have for you today. Today's episode was short and sweet. So as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you, and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Crystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Crystal a text message. And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.